welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your habits, your network, and more. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Hayslip, and today I'm joined by Peter Elbaum, our co-host, where we do our monthly catch-up. We're just going to kind of shoot the stuff. This is a PG podcast, by the way. We're going to shoot the stuff on what's been up with both of us lately. We're going to get into some updates around what we're working on. Peter, in particular, is going to talk about a new indie hacker project. If you've been following his story, he quit his job about a year ago. He's been contracting. His plan was to do some indie hacker projects. Really, what he wants to do is reclaim his life, reclaim his time. He's done that. Now he's finally got a project idea, and he's begun working on it. He said he's about halfway through. So let's get an update from him on how that is going and how he foresees this being an experience in and of itself. Maybe not even the thing that he wants to arrive at, but the process is going to be the important part, and he'll highlight that here in a minute when we get into the episode. Then I'm going to give an update on 90 Days of Action. If you don't know what that is, it's a community that I started way back in January. It's 90 days of hardcore share everything about your life, try to achieve some big goals. It's like the most concerted effort towards goal achieving that I've ever done in my life. So I'm going to share some updates on what I've learned from that community around the 16 of us that are trying our darndest to achieve big things. I think there are implications for you as people learning how to code. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with sharing, each Peter and I are going to share some of our most transformative learning experiences, right? So as we always say, you don't learn from books. You don't even learn from podcasts. That's risky to say, so this is a podcast. But what you learn from is the action you take in response to these resources, books and podcasts, right? So we're going to share our most transformative learning experiences. Spoiler alert, it's when you put yourself in intense, hardcore, different, uncomfortable situations for like a boot camp. So hopefully you enjoy Peter and I rambling. And here we go. All right, man, let's do this. We just went through like a little list and decided that we need to get more organized in our list, or at least send them ahead of time. So a few things I want to talk about. I wanted to ask you about, you have a whole podcast that I confessed I didn't listen to, so we don't have to go through it, but a year of freelancing, which is crazy that, I guess that means it's been over a year since you like quit the W-2 world and have been floating on your own. But would also love to talk about, if you have any updates. You know, one of the things we continually track is Peter's, well, maybe lack of, no offense, indie hacker project. I don't know if that was the project you were referring to?
Yeah, so I've been working on something.
Well, sweet. What is it? Give it to us.
Yeah, so this will be good motivation for me to finish it, I think. I'd say it's like 50% there. But it's called Present Log. And I'll go ahead and say off the top, I don't think it's an earth-shattering idea, but I think I mentioned this the last time we talked. Like, I kind of see this as like just getting reps in, basically, and getting used to shipping, which is kind of a muscle, I think, like anything. And if nothing else, kind of combating that like perfectionism, because I think what I've fallen into in the past is like, oh no, like worrying about things that are not concerns at the beginning, right? Like a lot of developers worry about, oh, how will this scale or blah, blah, blah. Like for me, it's like, oh, what if the data model is not exactly right? Stuff like that. Or like trying to worry about things that you can't even anticipate. So that's kind of the preamble. But yeah, so this is solving a very specific problem that I have. I think other people have, but I think if nothing else, I will use this, which is, number one, I can't remember what I've gotten people as gifts for anything, birthday, nice. Christmas.
So I thought you said present. I thought you meant like being fully present. I was like, yes.
Yeah. So maybe
like
the
presents?
Name could be a little better. I actually used ChatGPT to, I was like, give me names for an app that helps you remember gifts you've gotten people. And that was one, and it had the .com available. And so I was like, okay, that's good enough. So it's kind of two things. One is like, just tracking what you've gotten people. So it's adding contacts, and also like, I don't know if you've seen this feature on Postable, but having a form that you can just send to people, like, hey, put your info in here, and it gets added to kind of your contact list.
Cool.
And then being able to like say, I got so and so this gift for this event. So I call it events, but Christmas, birthday, anniversary, stuff like that. And then the last thing I'm working on is, in my family, we're very just kind of practical and straight to the point. So like for Christmas and stuff like that, we just make lists of what we want, as opposed to like trying to. My wife is a really good gift giver, and she likes researching and trying to figure out what people might like. But on my side of the family, we just say, hey, these are the things I want. And so the last feature I'm planning to build is the ability to do that in the app and share it with people. Hopefully, like maybe integrate email if I have time. And just, you get an email, hey, Peter shared his birthday 2023 list with you or whatever. And then you can click and see like, these are the things on the list. And if you're logged in and you click purchased, then it shows up on your, what I call a log. So like of the list of presents you've gotten people. So simple idea, not earth shattering, but I'm having a lot of fun building it, and I'm using some new technology, which we can also talk about. So that's been really interesting as well. And like I said, if nothing else.
What new tech are you using?
Remix. It's a React framework. I don't know if you've played around with it very much, but it's very interesting. It's kind of like Next.js in a lot of ways. Like everything's server rendered, and
very cool. Yeah.
Like it serves up a full HTML document, as opposed to like regular SPA where you're kind of injecting chunks of React into the browser. So it's a little bit old school in that way. It's almost like a Ruby on Rails type of deal in certain ways, but it's got a little bit more configuration than something like a Rails would have. But anyway, so that's been really fun, and have just been enjoying it and trying to make progress every day.
Yeah.
Like I literally have on my list like daily progress. So I'm trying to force myself to like, even if I just sit down and like tweak the styles on something, like I count that, and just trying to like move the ball forward a little bit at a time.
How do you track that? Do you have like someone to look back and see? Is it just like a chain, like every day you're trying to do just something?
Yeah. And then I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on this list, and I'll just strike whatever day that is. So I'm trying to get in the habit of doing that. And like I said, it's probably about 50% there. This comes out on Monday, so this will be good motivation for me to buckle down and get it over the line this weekend. But it's been really fun just to like have that experience of coding that you sometimes get where you're, like an hour goes by and it's like, where'd that go? Because you're just in the flow state. Haven't really gotten that for quite some time, if we're being honest. And so it's been really fun to just kind of be in a project like that.
When you say you're 50% there, you mean 50% like MVP, like the version 1?
Yeah, I think so.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That seems fast. That feels fast.
Yeah, it's I think Remix has helped with that in a lot of ways, because like it has Prisma out of the box. Like it's made the data side really easy. And they have these stacks. I think they call them stacks, which are basically like templates. And so they have one called the Indie Stack, which has SQLite, Prisma, and like a Tailwind kind of set up out of the box. And I've never used SQLite, but I really like the fact that it's like a file. So it's cool to be able to have like SQL like basically a relational database, but not have to set up a server for it. And they provide a way of like, if you want to switch to Postgres, they have another stack with Postgres and like a lot more fancy stuff that you can kind of switch over at a certain point. So yeah, for me, it's been fun to get up and rolling on something pretty fast.
Yeah, I love it. So this is a web app, right? It's not going to be
web app.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, man. My like first feature thought is, that conversation of, man, what do I get this person? Because I think I more or less remember like the gifts I've bought. I think, at least for me, but I think they're not very memorable. That's for sure. But I've come to the point lately now where it's like, okay, now that I'm older, I'm like, my wife and I were laughing. This is a complete random anecdote, but it's like the tide is shifting to where this sounds so terrible to say, but like in the past when I was young and broke, like Christmas was profitable. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you would buy like some random cheap crap gifts for like your family because you're like, I can't afford anything. They don't care. They're not trying to get any good stuff. But then I'd get all these like sweet gifts, like stuff I really need. Like if I was gonna get shoes that year, it'd be from Christmas or anything else. And now it shifted to where they're like, you don't really need me to buy you anything, right? Like I feel like my family. And no shade if my family listens to this, that they haven't bought me anything expensive. But now it's like, oh, well, I feel like now I'm a full adult with the ability to buy real gifts. Now I'm like buying real stuff for my family. I almost feel like I need to pay, but not like pay my parents back. But it's like, hey, you guys have worked hard your whole life. I want to give you something nice now. But I don't know what that is. Like I have no idea. Even I finally come to the point this year of like, all right, cannot buy my mom any more candles, can't buy her any more framed pictures. Like, I have no idea what to buy my mom. And so I just, like, awkwardly texted her, like, what do you want? But I feel like if there was some way to say, hey, just sent you a blah, 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 feel free to, like, put in stuff you're interested in. Or even, I remember, not I remember because this wasn't that long ago, but I think I was involved in, like, some kind of Secret Santa recently where they sent you have the ability to just make a list of stuff on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you didn't know the people really well, they wouldn't know what to get you kind of thing. So anyways, man, I think it's a cool idea. What's going to be your, like rollout plan? Like you're going to like, I guess, post it to the interwebs and get people to it's probably seasonal, right? Like a holiday season. It's like
right.
Holiday,
other stuff. I don't know, maybe Valentine's, which we just missed. The rollout plan is a good question because that I think is where I've fallen short in the past and the thing that most developers don't think about because we like building but not marketing, and a lot of people don't know how, and frankly I don't really know how. So I think probably like LinkedIn, just as like a, hey, I built this is like part of how I'm using my self-employed time. And cool. Then probably something like my YouTube channel, which another thing about this that's tough is it's B2C instead of B2B. Like if I were trying to do it for real, I'd do B2B. Because
you're trying to get a bunch of
money to spend. Right. As opposed to like, it's kind of like doing social or anything like that. It's like selling to consumers is hard. So, and there's not like a paid feature yet. So I'm thinking like at a certain point, maybe the paid plan would be like you get a certain number of lists free or something. Or like some kind of like really differentiated feature. Like I've thought about like trying to integrate ChatGPT for like present ideas, stuff like that. Cause like to your point, it's hard to think of a truly good gift to get somebody. So, yeah, I'm not fully baked. Like I said, it's more to just get in the habit of building and kind of see what goes from there. But I mean, we got this podcast, LinkedIn, YouTube, and hopefully people will play around with it and just maybe get some good feedback and iterate from there. Maybe post on Indie Hackers. So that's kind of the plan.
That's great, man. I think that might lead a good segue into thinking about something I've been working on, because this idea that you're doing this not necessarily for the sake of what most people would do this for, but like just for the sake of flexing that muscle of shipping and getting things out the door. Yeah. And even like just for you to have a full process and a workflow. Because I think a lot of the folks that have been successful in the indie hacking game are folks that have created just like so many projects.
Yeah, like I think of Peter Levels right off the bat.
Yeah, definitely. And he's like a difficult example because, I mean, just the sheer number of projects that he's experimented with is astounding. So I don't even know that, it's possible to mimic that. But yeah, at least multiple folks have multiple projects, and something takes off eventually, and you learn from the first one and you kind of keep iterating. So we did this thing called 90 Days of Action, or we are still doing it, my friend Scott and I. And the sole purpose of it wasn't so that we would create a community of goal achievers, right? Because that's kind of what it turned into, is like sort of a mastermind of people who signed up. They all paid $500 to be in this community for 90 days for us to lead them through like achieving their goals. But for us, the end game wasn't like, hey, let's create a revenue stream of, in a mastermind group. It was like, let's achieve our goals. Like we literally did this for ourselves, not for the sake of actually trying to create something. So it sounds similar that, maybe it doesn't take off and become like the next gift thing, but that's like secondary, I think, for you and to the point of like the process of having like done it,
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess I was just going to give some updates on goal setting and those kind of things, because I think what you even said in terms of that you're tracking, like, did you do this or did you do something, is something that I've been diving really deep into with this 90 days of action thing, where we've got about, I think there's like a total of 18 of us who, the premise was over 90 days, let's set like 1 to 3 large goals. And then, unlike whenever you normally set goals, which I think for most people, they fade out, right? We started this in January, so everyone was thinking about New Year's resolutions and goals and those kind of things. We thought, well, what if we tied those goals back to like daily inputs, is what we called it. And those are our commitments. Like, what are the daily and weekly commitments that we're making to achieve these goals? So like for you, it sounds like if you were a part of it, it would be, I'm going to build this project. That's my goal. Daily inputs are, did I make progress, right? Did I spend time on that? And we've even quantified that quite a bit by most people. What they're doing is, if the input is just time spent doing it, we try to quantify that by saying like, hey, how many Pomodoros did you spend on this thing? So for example, the end goal for Scott and I, who started the 90 Days of Action with me, was that we would build this virtual assistant, we call it fractional executive assistant company called FreedUp, which it's live. You can go to freedup.life. I basically copy pasted the marketing site from DevMint and just, so it's obviously not DevMint, but it's the exact same code, just different content. So freedup.life, because we're going to free up your life, is the name of it. And, example of the way we've been tracking progress is we each have like a Pomodoro goal. And for those who don't know, a Pomodoro is, it's like a productivity method where you set a 25-minute timer and do nothing but focus on a specific task for 25 minutes. And then the timer goes off and you take a 5-minute break, right? Which is crazy hard. I think most people would agree that focusing for long periods of time is harder than you imagine. So whenever you actually have a Pomodoro timer. So that's been cool to do. But we also have this whole set of rules that are like, you can't listen to educational podcasts. Like I couldn't listen to this podcast for 90 days actually because it's educational. And the idea was that we wanted people to actually do stuff, right? Learn by doing instead of learn by reading, because the assumption is, you have enough knowledge from the books you've read, from the podcasts that you've listened to. The exceptions would be like skill building, right? Like if you're learning how to code and you need to watch a tutorial, we just said, hey, for every hour you spend watching a tutorial, you need to spend an hour actually doing, because you don't learn to code by just watching tutorials or something like that. So it's been really incredible to see it's not worked the way I thought it would work. Meaning most people are not linearly progressing, right? It's a ton of ups and downs. And I'm right there in with that too. Like I have not been able to achieve the kind of goals that I thought I was going to be able to achieve. Like I think I had some for fitness. I know, I'm too scared to share them. I had some for like fitness, nutrition. I had some for freed up. And then we had the goals of, avoiding social, I haven't posted anything on LinkedIn in forever, avoiding listening to podcasts, avoiding all that. And the number one most effective thing that I've discovered is I created this channel in Slack called the accountability feed, where like every day, like literally every day, I post very specifically like what I did for all those things. So I think like for mine, just to kind of give you an idea, let me actually pull it up real quick instead of having to think off the top of my head. And I have a point here that I'm coming back to around this. But every day I post whether or not I tracked all my nutrition, like my macros that day. I post whether I lifted, whether I did intermittent fasting, whether like I snacked, how many drinks I had, like alcoholic beverages, how many desserts, did I eat bread, did I have sugar, protein, calories, and then like weigh in. So that's like all for my nutrition goal. And then I post like how many pomodoros I did toward Freed Up. Oh yeah, and then I have one on parenting, which is like not yell at my kids.
Nice.
I get them ready for school every day and get them dressed and make them breakfast and take them to school. And that's usually whenever it's like, just put on your shoes. Like, why are you pooping right now? Like, why'd you choose now to poop?
Right.
It's terrible. And then I've got one where I track how many of like the 9 days of action rules that I followed that day. And it's the power of like knowing, and honestly, it's just the only one using this feed. It's me and Scott. Like no one else is like choosing to like, they submit their scorecards every week so that we can see like how they progressed that week.
Progressed.
Yes. But it's the power of just like knowing and seeing a feed of what I've done, because I think I dupe myself into thinking that I've done better than I have, because I think our memories work in such a way where you kind of like get a general haze of like, oh, this is how the week went. Like overall, like, yeah, it felt good. I mean, I did pretty well, right? But then you go back into your feed and you realize like, oh, dude, I yelled at my kids every day, which is, it's not been true. I've had plenty of days where I haven't yelled at my kids, but it's like you don't realize that. Like that, hey, this thing is actually a habit in my life. Like I'm doing this all the time, or I'm not doing this. And so to establish these new habits and routines or commitments, it's kind of like you're doing. Like you probably have like a little chart there that shows you like whether or not you're breaking the chain. So I think that's been interesting to see just how difficult it is for people to stick with goals, right? There are things that they said are the most important life changes they could make this year. And it's so easy for them to drop those things, myself included. But there's power in like having this accountability on it. And I think that's, again, we've always said this, that's why boot camps work, is because other people are doing the same thing, right? It's not necessarily the curriculum itself or those other things. It's really the power of like everyone doing it together. So
right.
Anywho, that's my 90 days of action update. So it's been cool because, several people have lost weight. There's several people are like growing their businesses. And, a lot of them are attributing the fact that they're part of this community with achieving those things, which is cool. Cause I think just the accountability has created enough momentum in their life that they've been able to move the needle in ways that they haven't before, which, that was the rewarding part. I wasn't expecting that there would be results and testimonials and things. I don't know what we're going to do with it in the future. Honestly, they've been asking us if we'll continue it. I don't think so, but maybe we'll do it again next year or something like that. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my question, is like, do you feel like it's working? Sounds like other people are saying yes. Do you feel like you've seen growth in the areas that you wanted to do better or different in?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not perfect. It's like, if you think about, we do a weekly call on Mondays, and we were kind of talking about this, that if you were to zoom in on a given week, you were to look at the quote chart of how you're doing, you might see like a down week, right? But one of our sort of mottos has been, it's okay to fail once, just don't fail twice in a row.
Yeah, that's good.
Like keep the overall trajectory going up and to the right. And it's kind of like the stock market, right? Like right now it's like, we're thinking, oh man, the stock market is crap. But if you have index funds, right, you look at like the 10-year past, like we're super high right now. It just, if you were to zoom in on a certain section of the graph, it might look like it's doom and gloom. And that was part of the reason why we did 90 days. 90 days is really long, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't think that far out.
Right.
And it's sort of like this built-in reminder of like, no, remember, I know things have come up. I know life's insane. But remember, like, this goal long-term is more important than any of those other things that you had thought about. So I know for me, some of these like nutrition things, which sounds silly, but like I've tried for years to like, you know, I'm a healthy guy. Like I'm definitely not unhealthy by any means. Like I've got good baseline habits in terms of like health, but in order to change the status quo, like move to the next level, it requires some pretty intense, deep focus. And I've tried for years and years, like literally, I mean, I've like paid for coaching, I've done everything, and nothing could seem to work to like break my previous, you know, habits until this, you know.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. 90 days is a really long time to be doing something that you are not already used to doing. That is requiring at least some effort from you. So, but it's good, you know, sticking with it that long. You're able to see, like you say, the highs and lows, and see, like my tennis coach growing up would always say, like, always be kind of pushing us to look at the bigger picture and like, okay, today might be down, but like zoom out and look at the whole graph. You hope that over time the graph is up, even if the individual day might be up or down.
Yeah, and I think what people are able to see is how those down weeks actually benefit you, you know, like where you're able to get a better idea of like, all right, what works, what doesn't work. And I think one of the things about 90 Days of Action has been, for the first probably 30 days or so, people were basically experimenting with which inputs actually create the outputs I want, right? And for some goals, that's pretty hard to measure. Like for like nutrition, you know, that's pretty easy. It's like, okay, as long as I'm tracking all of the things I'm eating, I'll know, like based off that week, like how many calories does my body really need to like lose weight, for example. Or like meal timing. Does meal timing matter? Well, if I'm tracking all my energy levels, then I can actually start to understand like, hey, I'm guessing this is when I should eat, but now that I'm actually tracking it, I can see that when I eat this time, it's better for me when I avoid eating or you know, any of those experiments. So probably the same is true whenever you venture into something that's uncomfortable and brand new. Like the fact is you suck at it, right? And so maybe even like your tennis lessons, like, all right, so this week we're trying something new that it's outside my comfort zone I'm not good at. Oh man, I'm not that, I died, you know, but next week will be a little better and so on. Yeah, so I'm kind of trailing off there on that, but it's definitely been interesting. It does motivate me to want, and even Scott and I, who, you know, he's the one who started this with me, my accountability partner, business partner, we've talked about like, hey, what does it look like for us to just like keep holding each other to these things like indefinitely? And what has been cool, by the way, is to be able to basically call each other out on stuff, right? Like we sort of have this contract together that's like, hey, we've both committed to this. So at any point in time, if it feels like I'm not pulling my weight or something, just say, hey man, like how is this thing going? Because you told me you were going to do this. I'm not seeing that. And it's not awkward. It's like just like, oh yeah, you're right. That's super helpful. You know, I invite you into that. One last thing I was going to mention about this is, and I mentioned this in another podcast that actually Scott and I did on this podcast a few episodes ago, about this idea of baseline. I think that idea has been super helpful for me. And it's this, that, and I've seen this a ton in coding boot camps, right? Where people who probably aren't ready to do something like this jump in and it doesn't go well for them. And the idea is like in the big picture areas of your life, your health, your wealth, relationships, you should probably, unless, you know, your system, and I saw this quote recently too, like the systems you have are perfectly made to do the things that you're doing right now. Like the things you're achieving right now are based off of these systems you have, right? So if you keep doing and utilizing the systems you have, whatever it is, like the job you have makes the money that you're currently making. The way your meal timing, the way the food you eat, all that contributes to your health currently as it is, weights, all of those kind of things. And so if you want to make a change, like to change the status quo in any of those areas, you have to then adopt new systems. And it's really difficult for people to adopt like new systems that are, you know, X number of points greater than the systems they have, right? Like you're not going to go from, all right, man, I'm like and this was my story kind of, right? Like I worked at a Honda dealership. I made $9 an hour. And then I did transition to becoming a software engineer, and my new salary was amazing comparatively, but I wasn't going to go from $9 an hour to one of these software engineers that makes, $400,000 or $500,000. That I needed like some level of baseline. And so the idea of baseline is like, what are the things that if you didn't do anything differently in the next like 6 to 12 months in this area, like you'd be okay, right?
Right.
Like it gives you the opportunity to then go to the next level. And it's like you really can't go to the next level in too many areas of your life at one time, or else you're going to fail. So like for someone going through a boot camp, for example, it's like, all right, I at least need some kind of baseline of where like if I quit my job financially, I'll be okay. I need a baseline of like if I keep the same patterns of eating and if I can't think about health right now, I'll be okay because I've already got good, eating, health, relationships. If I can't really invest too much in my spouse in this season, relationships in a good enough area that it can handle me going through a boot camp, right? And usually where people go wrong, one area is like if they don't have baseline established in all these other areas of their life, and then they try and go for something big, and they end up just hurting themselves. They crash. So instead, it's like, okay, one way you could think about improving or going to the next level in some area is working on all of these other areas in small ways first, making sure that like you're at baseline before then trying to move on. And I think we've seen that too with some folks that like, hey, you didn't need 2 or 3 goals. Like you needed 1 goal, right? Because, and it's okay. Like just where you're at, you just can't handle all of these right now. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that maybe a James Clear idea, like your systems are like perfectly set up for the outcomes that you're currently getting. So I think it's an interesting thing to think about, if nothing else.
Definitely James Clear credit for that. Mm-hmm. I think his quote's more like, you don't rise to the level of like your
goals. You fall to the level of your systems or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just
cool.
Funny. Sweet. Anything else to talk about? I think I was going to ask you a random question.
Yeah, go for it.
I said this before, but I was going to ask you about like the best books, on that note of learning and moving forward. But instead of asking the best books, I wanted to go with that ethos of 90 Days of Action, which is like, you don't really learn things from books. You learn things by applying the head knowledge that the book gave you. Like it's the actual experience where you learn something. And so I'm just curious, like what experiences in your life have like led to like the most life change for you? Like what have you done? And maybe like, for example, I think, a great example would be you quitting your job, right? You couldn't have known all the things you know now about quitting your job until you actually quit your job. So like, yeah, what's like an example of like a experience that has changed you?
Yeah. So one of the first things I thought of when you mentioned this is we were talking with some friends of ours we ate lunch with this past weekend. And I did this study abroad program in college, which came up during this conversation, which is why I'm thinking about it. I think that's probably one of the first times in my life where I did something that had like a tremendous impact. It was kind of one of those like there's no going back type of things. Like one of the first things ever like that, where it's like you're kind of committing to something that is going to be really hard and also transformative. Probably the next one for me would be coding boot camp. But I mean, that was definitely the first one. And it was with speaking of goals, the goal was to become fluent in Spanish by my own definition, which was pretty high bar. And so the definition I set for myself was that native speakers would think I was a native speaker.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it ended up happening, which was surprising. But a big part of the reason it happened was I picked this like very hands-off program. Like most study abroad programs are like the program does everything for you, where it's like we find your host family, you're in a class with all these other Americans, and we do all the programming for you and we take you on the trips. They basically handle everything for you. And I picked a program which is basically the opposite of that, where it was like you agree to not speak English for the semester and you kind of do everything yourself. And you're in like university classes with I was in Spain, so other Spaniards.
We're at in Spain?
In Madrid.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Wow, I had no idea.
Really
Did you
hard.
study Spanish in college? Or?
Yeah, that was my major undergrad.
Okay,
so,
that's right.
Yeah. So that was like one of the most like transformative, I think, things I've ever done, just because honestly a lot of similarities to coding bootcamp, where it was like I had to reach into depths of myself that I didn't know were there. And it's hard to go through, but on the other side of it, having a lot of confidence for just kind of knowing how far you can kind of push yourself. So
how long were you there for?
I was there for kind of a long time because I went in the fall and their exams are after Christmas. So I had to stay through Christmas, which was also really hard. But I was there August. I think I was there like 5.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Part of me is like, so before we started recording the podcast, I said, I gave you one idea. It was to go through like my someday maybe list.
Yeah.
And actually what made me think about that list was this week I saw, and I know this is against the 90 Days of Action rules, but I saw a tweet from, I think it was Michael, is it Gurley or Girdley?
Girdley.
About learning Spanish. And it made me think like, we had this plan potentially like moving to Spain actually this last year before we moved to Austin. And part of it was like, I just really want to learn another language, right? So when you were saying that you did this, I was like, all right, can I move my family to Spain for just like 5 months, as long as Peter did, and learn Spanish? So I love that, man. That's definitely one of my like future goals that I want to figure out how to accomplish at some point. I always forget that you did Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think the most transformative things in your life are the ones where you kind of have to go all in. And I think, again, that's why boot camps are so effective, is because you just go all in, right? Yeah, for me, first thing I thought of when I asked you this question, and it really, I didn't presuppose the question with this thought, was I don't know if you ever did like ministry stuff and had to like raise support for something.
No, but I know plenty of friends that have done that.
Yeah, but I had to do like this full-time support raising where it was like basically I raised my entire salary from like donors.
Yeah, it's
which
tough.
Is like the scariest, in some ways worst process ever. And it basically meant I had to, and we went through like this boot camp where they train you on how to do this effectively. And I realized that it was essentially sales training, right? And every time I'm like starting something new, this is the lens by which I'm thinking through is, okay, so we started Parsity, or it was like, okay, cool, how do I get my our first cohort? It's like, well, I got to make a list of people, set up meetings, make an ask, be direct, all those kind of things. And the same thing with Freed Up now. It's like, all right, well, I'm setting up these meetings with different folks who I think would benefit from this. And it always comes back to that idea that I'm making all these phone calls, I'm setting up meetings, and I'm not like a natural born salesperson. Like the Scott, who I'm starting Freed Up with, he is like, he can have a conversation with anybody, and he's like the most charismatic, lovable. Like he came into WeWork, right? I've been working at this WeWork office, and the first day that he came up here, there's like these ladies that work the front desk, and then he like went out and he like got them flowers and came back, and I'm just like, oh my god, like that's just like not something I would ever do, you know? And they're like, oh, you're friends with Scott, like Scott Frazier? I'm like, yeah, like, oh, we just love him. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, everyone. But anyway, so that was really cool because it was insanely out of my comfort zone. It was so hard during the process, but once we finished it, it was this incredible like arsenal of experiences that I'd had. Like now I feel confident, like way more confident talking to people, making big asks of them, trying to like paint a picture of like what it means to, be a part of something. And then it was like the sales was difficult because you had nothing to offer. It was like, oh, literally the only thing I'm giving you is an opportunity to like donate to like this thing that you could just feel like you're being part of it because you're donating to it. Right. That was it. So it was like the hardest kind of sales to go through is the kind where like you've got nothing to sell. So anyway, and even in that process too, like we read a book, right, that outlined how you do it all. It's basically a sales book, but it wasn't until I actually did that I learned those things. And forever, like I have confidence that, in some ways I can start new businesses because if I have to, I can at least make phone calls and set up meetings with relationships I have and pitch something.
Right. Yeah, I think my guess is like anything we would come up with to answer this question is probably pretty dang scary in some way. Like,
yeah.
I think doing what you did, raising support, sales, studying abroad, coding boot camp. For me, the most recent one has been doing stand-up. Like, all those things are like the kind of things that would make you want to curl into a ball and like just go in the opposite direction. But that I kind of have this theory as well of life that like all the like really important good growth is on the other side of those kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you do have to force yourself. Like I call it a boat burner, which like comes from Cortez conquering the Aztecs. Like the story is they got there and he burned all the boats so they couldn't go back. And so like, I think if you really are serious about doing anything like this, if you can kind of have that like commitment, it makes it easier because then you're not like, well, should I quit? It's like the only way out is forward and you just got to do it.
Yeah. That is like the powerful argument for entrepreneurship where, I think most of the time, at least the feeds that you and I read would say, start a side gig, play it safe, all those kind of things. But, I did do this. Like at some point, whenever we moved to Israel, I didn't have anything else, on my plate, or even whenever we moved back to the U.S. and started the first coding boot camp, or even Project Shift, it was like there was no other income coming in. Parsity. It was burn the ships, and I think part of the success of all of that was due to that. Even though I think there was probably a way to not have to burn the ships. Sometimes burning the ships is the helpful method. Yeah, I mean, I think as we continue with 90 Days of Action, I really do. We don't know, but I think part of it is we are encouraging other people to burn the ships and to basically say, hey, it's not as crazy as you think it is to burn the ships. Like, in fact, I'm going to burn mine too. We'll burn them together. Is this? I think is what's powerful about having people be able to do this. So,
yeah, definitely the most effective way. I think like you need some kind of like impetus or something like that.
Yeah, it makes me think of. Did you ever read A Million Miles in 1,000 Years?
No, but I've listened to his podcast, and he mentioned like they made a movie out of it that bankrupted him. I don't know if that's where you're going with it.
Oh, no. Yes, that book is about another book. So this guy, Donald Miller, he most people probably know him as the guy behind StoryBrand, which is like a best-selling marketing book, and it's actually a really great marketing book. But he used to be like a Christian writer before that, and he wrote this book, Blue Like Jazz, and then anyways. But one of the things he talks about inside A Million Miles in 1,000 Years is he basically outlines. He says your life is like a story, a good movie script. In every script, there's like an inciting incident. Like, right, something happens that forces the character into doing something hard that's transformative. And he talks about this idea of like you creating your own inciting incident. And so for him, he was like super overweight for a long time. And then like he signed up for some like huge cross-country bike ride, right? For him, that was the inciting incident. Like, all right, crap. Now suddenly, overweight guy is now signed up for a cross-country bike trip. Like, cue the montage where he starts training and changing and becoming someone different. And so I think, boot camps are a great example of that. It's like they are an inciting incident where you can choose to put yourself in that situation. 9 Days of Action is the same thing. I mean, all these things that I think that are ultimately effective are inciting incidents. So
Yeah.
love that. Man, all right. Anything else before we jump off here?
I think we covered everything unless there's something that we talked about beforehand that we haven't touched.
I don't think so.
Cool.
Have a happy first week of March, y'all. First full week of March, I guess it is. I'm so excited about the spring weather. Austin gets like this little sliver of spring before it turns into like just like deep, dark death summer.
Yeah. When I was at my last job, the company's in Austin, and I went in early April, and it was like perfect. So you got some good stuff around the corner.
Just for a little while.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk.
All right, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. As you know, we have plenty of shameless plugs in the show notes. So if you are one who is wanting to learn how to code and become a software engineer, please visit us at parsity.io. That's parsity.io. That is our online coding bootcamp. Please note, something sort of big in terms of news for Parsity is we are continually increasing the strictness of our admissions process. So as you know, we have a code challenge. In the past, we said you have to at least get a 70 on the code challenge to gain admissions into Parsity. And now it's 100%. So on your first try, you gotta get 100%. You can obviously do Dev 30. That's dev30.xyz. That is our program that's 30 days long for you to learn how to code the basics of JavaScript. So we invite you to practice a bunch before taking the admissions code challenge. But we do want you all to be aware that we're continually increasing the barrier for admissions, not because we want to keep people out, but because we want those who come in to prepare even more and make sure this is something they want to commit to for the long haul. That's not to say we've had any crazy issues. We just want to make sure that the folks who are coming are the folks who really, really, really want to land a job as a software engineer. And it's been really amazing lately to see some of our folks. It's taken a little bit longer these days thanks to I think mostly it's probably the environment, the feeling that getting a job as a software engineer right now is hard. We've talked about this on the podcast before. But it's been cool to see folks getting higher offers as they take longer to find a job. It seems to have paid off. Anyway, that does it for today's episode. Check out Peter's YouTube channel where he chronicles more information about his life and journey from software developer to quitting his job, contractor, indie hacker, all those things. It's a valuable resource in addition to this podcast. We'll see you next week.